Hi, welcome back to Prepping in Progress. I'm Steve.
And I'm Kim.
That's Kim.
That's Steve.
And today we're going to be talking about a listener question.
Yeah, one of our subscribers asked, "What got you into prepping?" Which I thought was a really cool way because to broach the subject of maybe how to get somebody else into prepping is what got us into it and what may have gotten other people involved in prepping. Steve's is kind of a boring story because he was kind of born into this lifestyle.
I'm a born again prepper. What?
Not born again. You're just born prepping.
I'm a born prepper.
Born prepper. I'm born again prepper.
So, stay with us and we'll get into that subject.
Okay, like I said, Steve's story is a little bit, I hate to say boring, because you were born into this lifestyle, third generation.
As we've talked about on one of our other videos, I come from a third generation family within a certain church, Christian church, that has the apocalyptic view that the end of the world is coming. There's going to be times, tribulations, persecutions, and they're all coming after us because of our beliefs. So go to the hills, get out, the whole nine. And my grandparents did that, and we've maintained and continue to grow. I was taught lots of skills by my grandparents, some skills by my parents, a different set, and then I've expanded upon that. So I've always been, I just didn't know there was a name for it.
Me,
And
on the other hand, I grew up more in just in the country lifestyle. My parents, we hunted, we fished, we canned, we had a garden, but it wasn't to prepare for anything other than the next meal. It was to, we canned because we got so much out of our garden that we wanted it to last. And my parents were poor, and so we had to do it for survival, everyday survival. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, my dad was a truck driver, and they had 4 children. And it was a struggle every day. And so every day we had to find ways to just live day to day. And so food was an issue, making sure we came up with enough to eat. There was plenty of times that the only meat in our freezer was stuff that we had killed, just because we couldn't afford the stuff that came from the grocery store. And so it was more just it wasn't homesteading because we lived in town, but it was very much, even though we lived in a city, we had those country skills.
Yeah.
Like I said, I remember my mom canning. Like I said, we'd sit on the back porch and chuck peas, and or shell peas and chuck corn. It was just a lifestyle that was almost mandatory just to keep all the mouths fed.
Well, and then there was the time the guy from church showed up with a hog and
2 hogs.
Two hogs.
2 hogs. And I remember my grandma and my mom butchering 2 hogs in the barn.
At
so,
night by.
Well, my dad had to work, so it was up to, but that's, those are kind of like country skills that I grew up with. And it was more just a way of life, just to get by day to day. It wasn't anything that was preparing me for any kind of, we weren't prepping for anything other than the next meal, like I said. Now, that's just kind of how I continued living. I lived from a very frugal standpoint. Steve, I'm a penny pincher at heart, and finding ways to, my mom would coupon, she would find any ways, and just very frugal background of, you don't want to spend your last dollar because you may need it tomorrow, But it was until we were getting ready we were moving to the house we live in now. The area that we were looking at buying had just had a very bad tornado devastate the town, and we were looking to move to that exact same area.
Well, we weren't married.
We weren't
yet.
together. I was
so
looking.
she was
I was
looking, and
looking.
I was going. I don't like this. I don't like this.
There was family in the area. We were wanting to move closer to them, but it did concern me. And so I guess my very first prep, if you want to call it that, was looking for a house that had either a storm cellar or a basement, because I was always very concerned with tornadoes. So natural disasters, what really got me started, like I said, that very first step of preparing was preparing for in an in-case scenario of a storm. And that was, I guess, my foot in the door of preparedness was natural disasters. And what natural disaster we have the worst of is tornadoes. And so my very first prep is buying a home with a basement. And once we got the basement and I started really thinking about preparing a little bit more, was a TV show that's kind of controversial in the prepper community, which we all know is Doomsday Preppers. We were watching that, and honestly, I didn't agree with 90% of what the TV show was about, but I found it interesting in the sense of people were preparing for different things and not just living day by day by day like I had been. And I was telling Steve, this is interesting. Have you ever thought about doing this? And he's like,
This is
life.
Let me show you what I've squirreled away
yeah.
in your basement already.
I didn't know. I had no idea. And it got me thinking, okay, having a basement is great, but I don't have water. I don't have food. I don't have anything in that basement. He did. But it got me, I didn't have I had gotten my kids' first, I didn't know it was called a bug out bag. I didn't know.
Tornado kit is what you
I
called it.
called it the kids as tornado kits. And it was a backpack. And they would have it by the backpack, and they'd have a pair of shoes and a helmet and a whistle. And every time we had a tornado warning, they would have to put on their backpack, they'd have to put on their helmet, they'd put on their whistle around their neck, and put on their shoes. And we'd go down into the basement, and we'd wait out the storm. And that was my first kind of step into preparedness a little bit further, was because I did not want my kids to be trapped. And if they were trapped somewhere and I couldn't get to them, or rescuers didn't know where they were, they had a whistle around their neck, they had helmets to protect their heads, which was just bicycle helmets. I saw it somewhere, so I would make them wear their bicycle helmets just in case there was debris falling from the basement. And their backpacks were cushioned with extra clothing and some water and some snacks in them.
You would also wrap bacon around their necks, right? So
No.
the rescue dogs would find them first?
No, but that's what the whistle was for. The whistle
Oh.
was for them to be able to signal. I had saw on a documentary of people who were trapped in their storm cellar, and they had not stocked it at all. I want to say it was in the very bed. It was in the Joplin tornado.
Yeah.
And a tree had fallen across the door of the storm cellar, and they
I
could
remember
not
that.
get out, and they had nothing in there. They had no water, they had no food, they had nothing. And that concerned me, and I'm like, well, if my kids are trapped in our basement and can't get out, first of all, they'd have shoes, so if they needed to walk on anything, they wouldn't hurt their feet. Helmets to protect their heads, backpacks to have extra stuff in, food and water and that sort of thing, and the whistles, if they couldn't get out, they could signal for help. And so, like I said, I didn't know what a bug out bag was, and I guess these are not technically bug out bags, but I called them their tornado kits. And we had those for the longest time, until we got further into prepping. We expanded on their bags and that sort of thing. But I would tell other moms the same thing. This is our tornado kits. This is what we have set aside. And it got them thinking, and they say they were going to do the same thing. And I was like, man, this is kind of cool, helping other people with, tornado preparedness is what I call it. I did not know it was prepping in any way. I was like, this is just common sense, for we live in Tornado Alley. We have tornadoes. And so that natural disaster aspect is what first got me into prepping in at least a small capacity. But watching different documentaries to get ideas we did come across EMP. And I had never heard the term or even knew what it meant. What was an EMP? And you may not either. If you're new to everything and you're like me and just starting out with disaster preparedness, an electromagnetic pulse knocking out all electrical stuff, no cars, no cell phones, no electrical grid, no nothing, was the worst case scenario that I could think of. And when I came across it, it was really overwhelming to think about something like that happening. Now, the tornado, I wasn't overwhelmed with because, okay, homeowners insurance, as long as my kids are alive and safe, we have family we can go stay with, while the insurance company's rebuilding the house, we've got that covered. Boom. With an EMP, there was no way that I could think of to insure the family.
Yeah.
You know, you can't buy EMP insurance to
Yeah.
you can buy flood, you can buy fire, you can do all this other stuff to prepare for a disaster. But an EMP to me was the absolute worst case scenario that I didn't feel like we could have a way to protect ourselves and protect our kids with. And we came across a few books, we came across a few, and really started diving deep into the prepper community because of EMP.
Yeah, I think that led us to Jonathan Hollerman's survival theory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, the grandfather of the
Redoubt movement.
Redoubt movement, James Wesley Rawls's books.
And we hadn't even talked about moving out there to the Redoubt. We were into it. And I want to say that was one of our biggest mistakes as new preppers. And I don't know if other new preppers may make the same mistakes. When you think of something as overwhelming as, had a bug, as EMP, you could want to try to do everything all at once. And we made that mistake as we got overwhelmed with all of the things that we needed. You know, we started food storage, we started canning, we started, everything we can think of. We started setting up the bug out location, which I didn't know his family had already kind of.
It was pretty well done.
But I started bringing food up here. I started doing everything because I was really concerned. We were setting out which was all good stuff to do, but we were trying to do it all like within weeks and draining the bank account, and because it really concerned me. It really shook me to think that something like that could happen and leave us in such a vulnerable position. Now we've kind of calmed down a little bit, where we're just taking it one thing at a time, one $20 prep at a time, one case of MREs at a time, one bag of rice at a time, and not trying to get ourselves so overwhelmed.
For the new preppers, we've talked in other videos about one thing at a time. Prep for a 3-day tornado stay, prep for a 7-day flood, prep for
a power outage.
I've been a month without power and been just fine. Prep for those things first. Now, when you are comfortable that you have your year's worth of food, that you have maybe your ham technician license, that you have a solid foundation, then go ahead and look at the biggies. The EMP, the nuclear war, the
civil unrest,
Red Dawn scenario, whatever floats your boat, and then begin to prep for the biggie. Now, for us, and I'm still of this theory, I just think you need a more solid foundation. Yeah. I think we did it right. We just jumped ahead.
Our hearts were in the right place.
We jumped ahead a year or two. Yeah. For the newer preppers, to me, EMP is the most horrific thing I can think of. Power's out. Okay, what happens when the power goes out? People get cranky. I mean, you've seen them on Black Friday. What happens when the power goes out? There's no hope of groceries coming in. The grocery trucks are done. You're going to have your civil unrest. You're going to have no food coming in. You're going to have a breakdown of society, civil services, not just police, fire, EMS, but your water. So suddenly your EMP has handled your civil unrest. Okay. Loss of food. Oh, your EMP, that's an element of it. Okay. Loss of emergency services. Oh, it's included in EMP. Pick your worst one where you see the most problems that you need to prepare for.
Kind of under an umbrella.
And then start working your way up the ladder, picking it apart piece by piece. Oh, you need ammo? Okay, put your guns and ammo aside. Oh, you need seeds? Okay. Learn to garden. Don't just put your seeds away. Learn to garden. Learn how to fertilize your ground. But that's kind of where I'm going with that.
Yeah. And like I said, we did get overwhelmed quickly, and a lot of people can. And I just want to say, we can relate. We were there. Take a step back and don't let your prepping and disrupt your enjoying the day.
Yeah.
And a lot of people see preppers as these doom and gloom, and they're always thinking about the end of the world. Honestly, being a prepper has given me more peace of mind than I was in those first couple days hearing about an EMP. When I first heard about an EMP, I was so overwhelmed, I was so worried because I did not have a plan in place. I had no way of knowing how we were going to deal with this. Now we've had it for a couple of years of kind of, even if we're not at the level we want to be at, which I don't think any of us preppers are, we're always preparing.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's always in progress. But I feel more secure now than I did back then. And that's what you're wanting to achieve. You're wanting to achieve where you are not as worried as you were when you first started. So that's one more thing off the worry list. On to the next. Okay, you're worried about this, whether it's a tornado or an EMP or civil unrest. Check that off the worry list. And so you don't have it in your head all the time. Or how we're going to handle this. We've got a plan. It's okay. Just like you have that homeowner's insurance. You're not sitting there worried about your house catching on fire. Yes, will it be bad? Absolutely. But you have that insurance policy there. Prepping is that insurance policy for us. It is peace of mind that we have purchased over the years.
And with all the work we've put into, over the years, right now, from where I'm sitting, I'm not going to show you, but I can see an HF and a 2-meter ham antenna. EMP goes off. Right now, this minute, this video goes kaput. I really ought to hit the button on.
Boom!
I can walk over to any vehicle here, pull the battery, pull the 2-meter radio out of where it is, walk into the house, hook it up to the battery, and I'm on the air checking out information. Boom, done. I don't need to worry about it.
Well, that's one thing that you really started working on too when you were starting prepping, is something that, yes, you grew up in this lifestyle, was getting your hand license. And that was one of your big prepping moments.
I had known a gentleman. I'm going to throw his name out there. You'll probably never see this. Harvey Myers out of Lincoln, Nebraska, was a ham operator when I was a kid. And he told us about it, I believe in Sabbath school class or in Pathfinders, and gave a little bit of a demo. And I was fascinated right up until the point I learned that was a requirement. And I just couldn't wrap my head around Morse code. Guess what, guys? No more Morse code, no excuse. Study and get your ham license.
Alright, well, this video is kind of drawn on, and I hope it gives you some insights on what got us started in prepping and what has continued to keep us prepping. And I hope it helps and you figuring out maybe how to talk to somebody who may be interested on how to just broach the subject. Just to, like I said, something that is, if they're in Tornado Alley or hurricanes or snows that may cause a power outage, whatever it may be, a blizzard to whatever, natural disasters is something we have all dealt with, and it may be a good way to get somebody at least started on that, and then just let the snowball go downhill after that.
And if you are a ham operator or become one, get on Facebook and look up the prepping ham groups. Go to your local ham club. You'd be surprised at how many of your unassuming, plain suit wearing people are actually preppers or of that mindset in your local ham club.
At least to one extent or another.
Go check out the DD12 Comms Connect on Facebook. Go and I mean, shoot, there was an article about these guys in the latest Prepper magazine. Go check it out.
All right, guys, thank y'all so much for visiting with us and watching our video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down there and the bell so you can get notified when we put up a new video. And I hope this was helpful in answering the question from our viewer. Thank y'all so much.
Have a good one.